Couples of Reddit, what's the most unromantic thing that's happened between the two of you that actually is a stronger indication of love than others might think? My husband got diarrhea so bad that it went everywhere in our bathroom, and I accidentally sat in it. I cleaned everything off, and jumped in the shower to clean his poop off while he was still going. I started puking in the shower from the awful seafood food poisoning smells. He says his time for me is us waiting in a drive-through line, and I sneezed a giant snot rocket all over my shirt and freaked out trying to hide it and find a tissue. I grew up with my grandparents BC. Both my parents had to work various jobs simultaneously, so my grandfather was my world. I took care of him during his last 5 years, when he became bedridden. I tried to visit him as often as I could. He lived with an elderly aunt who fed him, but needed me to bathe him and, eventually, change his diapers and so on. Early in our relationship, my now wife would come over sometimes. One time I got to his house and found his fridge full and him watching TV, eating a bowl of ice cream. My wife had gone a few hours before me without telling me. 6 months later I proposed. Did you know she was the one before, or did it hit you in that moment? Your wife sounds like a beautiful human. I kind of felt it, but that moment just sealed the deal for me. My boyfriend made me go to the gynecologist to talk about getting an ablation after watching me struggle from crippling pain and bleeding every month for years. He said not to worry about money or anything else besides solving my problem. Fast forward 2 months and I got a call from my surgeon. Apparently I missed the fact that they did a biopsy when they removed my polyps and found uterine cancer. Had I been stubborn and continued to ignore my miserable periods for years, who knows what could have happened to me? No one expects uterine cancer in someone under 30. He held me while I cried, took me to every appointment, and helped me when I recovered after my hysterectomy. That dude is my rock. My boyfriend texted me one day when he was at the gym that he believed his rectum had prolapsed. No idea how, but I started Googling what we needed to do about it. I read that if it wasn't serious, you could just push it back in before going to a doctor, instead of heading to the ER. So what do? Put on a pair of gloves, lube my finger up, and kneel in front of him while he's lying on the bed attempting to push part of his rectum back into his anus. Turns out it was just a giant fucking hemorrhoid when he went to the doctors the next day. But I think that was a moment in our relationship where it was established that we both had complete comfort with each other. If your partner can try and shove part of your rectum up into your ass, then nothing is really too disgusting or gross to discuss. I have a now 12-year-old daughter who is not biologically his, however she calls him dad now and he always refers to her as his daughter. When she was about 10 he'd been moved in about 6 months. We were settling into things as a family. I was working and they were home hanging out and she got her first period. I had briefly had a couple small discussions, enough that she knew what was happening, but was pretty unsure what to do. So he handed her some toilet paper, told her the basic girl trick of putting it in her underwear and took her to the store. He helped her pick out some pads, detoured to the ice cream, chocolate, chips and bakery section and picked up Junior Advil just in case. They settled in on the sofa. He explained the basics of how to use it. Showed her a quick YouTube video. Made up a hot water bottle for her, popped her dirty clothes on to soak. And they snuggled and she talked about it and they Googled answers if he didn't have them. I came home to them having a nap on the sofa looking like a slumber party exploded and a happy child. Probably one of the moments I've loved him the most. Edit, holy crap, I went to bed and this blew up. I was expecting it to get buried with how busy the thread already was. I'll try to respond to everyone. This is similar to my grandpa. My aunt got off the bus at 8 years crying because she was dying, bleeding to death out of her vagina. I feel it's important to note here I adore my grandpa and that my grandpa lives his entire life pretending that none of his female offspring have genitals. He gets extremely embarrassed and uncomfortable at the mention of childbirth, sex, periods, pubic hair, etc., anything that reminds him that you don't look like Barbie between your legs. Breastfeeding doesn't count. I know, it surprised me too, he was fine with it compared to everyone else in my family and even said leave him alone. I wouldn't want to eat with a blanket on my head either when I was trying to use a cover and my son kept kicking it off and fussing. My grandma was at work and my poor, masculine, conservative grandpa consoled her, reassured her that she was okay and that it wasn't going to hurt her, dug out a pad and told her to get some panties and showed her how to put the pad on them before sending her off to shower and redress. Then proceeded with the self-torture of explaining what puberty is. He still gets embarrassed when it gets brought up.